I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Villaseñor.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gurrola.
Here.
Mayor Broggie.
Here.
Councilmember Austin.
Here.
Councilmember Mendez.
Here.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. Have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. So now moving on to item number 5, presentations. And we will start with 5A. We have Vivian Vasquez from the, she is a senior associate of the Workforce and Economic Strategies to inform us about the Broadband Consortium project, which is really something I think you'll find very interesting. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak for a few minutes about the broadband project. I am Vivian Vasquez. I work with the EDC, and I'm also here with Dr. Bill Simmons, who's sitting back here as our technical expert. We both are part of the Broadband Strategic Project that is being funded by in support of VCOG, so thank you so much for allowing us to share just a little bit about what we're doing. This is purely an informational presentation, just to share a little bit about the project, and we hope to come back in a few months to talk a little bit about how the project is progressing. As part of this presentation, I'll talk a little bit about the history of Broadband for All, a little bit about our project plan and activities, what the timeline will look like, and what some of the outcomes are expected for your city, and some of the things that we hope that you'll consider. As all of you are likely very familiar, COVID became a very much an accelerator of the importance of digital connectivity, internet access, and so because of that, California Broadband for All, many laws are passed related to access for internet for many folks and also broadband infrastructure. And part of that was SB 156, and that has been part of the funding that's allowed us to do this work. As part of our project, we are convening municipal groups such as yours. So we've started convening different cities within Ventura County to talk about what the status is of broadband infrastructure in their cities and how we can work together and coordinate and make sure that broadband is a priority among the cities. We're also doing a lot of data collection, so we've been working with David Rollins from your city, who's been part of the working group, to talk about speed testing. So we're doing a lot of speed testing to see what is the actual internet connectivity and experience that folks are having on the ground, and how can we make sure and validate that with the information that internet service providers are offering. And that will also help us identify the areas that have lower connectivity and making sure that we prioritize those when we think about where the funding should be going for internet and broadband. Part of that data collection will allow us to do mapping, so that's part of identifying what those priority areas will be within your city, and also coordination. So we want to make sure that all the cities are working together to understand what the broadband funding opportunities are, how we can work together and really capitalize on that connection. In terms of the timeline, we've been convening the cities for a few months now. We just had a meeting earlier today, and now we're starting to think about what the actual survey and speed test outcomes are. So we've been sending out information about the surveys and speed testing, and hoping that the residents of your city and others will fill out those surveys and speed tests so that way we can get information and validate that. Next, we also have stakeholder engagement meetings that we'll be planning to do the next couple of months, and we're hoping that your city will host one as well, and that will help us gather more information, especially qualitative information about what's important to your residents when it comes to internet connectivity and what they're experiencing on the ground. And then lastly, we'll also come back to you all to update you on the data and information that we've collected. And then we'll fold that all into a regional report and a strategy for broadband for the region, which will include chapters specifically focused on each city. So we'll have a specific chapter focused on your city's broadband connectivity and history. In terms of the outcomes, we hope to have a strategy that is helpful to you all in terms of understanding what your broadband access is right now and where you want to go into the future. We're also creating a lot of mapping tools, if you're familiar with GIS mapping, that will help us understand where your assets are currently, and then using those priority areas, thinking about where we want to add additional funding and resources. In terms of what we're asking of you all, we're not asking for any money. We're just asking for just your support and continued engagement in these meetings, just for us to have your voice. It's really important for your city and your residents' voices to be heard in this process. Broadband is now becoming a new utility, just like water or any other thing. It's really vital for employment, for healthcare, for education, for so many aspects of your residents' lives. And so we hope that you'll continue to engage in this process with us and thinking about broadband and prioritizing it and assisting us in this data collection process. And that's it from me. Are there any questions?
Questions from council?
Yeah, I do have one. You mentioned some surveys, and I apologize if I missed it. When or what will that surveying look like, and when would that be happening?
Yes, great question. So the actual survey is already live, but we're working with the cities to coordinate trying to push that out at the same time. So February 1st is when we've decided that all of the cities in Ventura County will be pushing out kind of a media press release, and then we'll be sharing that survey link out. So it's two parts. There's a survey, which is just 9 simple questions asking folks about their internet connectivity and what they're experiencing. And then the other part of it is the speed testing. So speed testing is just one button you click, and then it gets some information about how fast your actual internet is that you're experiencing either on your phone or on your laptop. So yeah, February 1st is when we'll start officially collecting that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have another follow-up question. Thank you, Mayor. So asking people if they do or do not have internet, but sending out links, is there potential for
Yes.
for sending them out mailers or with our water bills, which we know our water bill goes to every household, and making that a bilingual survey?
Yes, that is
there
great.
potential?
Yes, great question, and we definitely recognize the irony in that of sending out the link via survey. So I heard a couple things in there. So one about bilingual, I didn't mention this, but the press release will be in English and in Spanish, and the survey is also in English and in Spanish. We don't currently have any other languages right now, but if there's any need for that, then we can definitely look into that. In terms of the water bills, that was something that was actually raised in our meeting today, and so that's something we'll be looking into as another way to outreach to folks. Unfortunately, the easiest way right now is to be doing this via survey link, but we have talked about printouts. Specifically, if we look at some of the priority areas and see that we don't have responses from certain areas, then we may potentially do postcards or flyers and then start to target areas based off of that. But just based off of limited resources for the outreach of each city, we know that those are more costly than sending out a link, and so we'll prioritize that based off of where we're not hearing from.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And then text also, right? So people might don't have internet for their household, but they've got it on their phone. Mm-hmm. So that's another way too to reach a lot of folks in town. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to thank you, and we look forward to being involved and receiving the information back. And I'm sure we'll all be involved as much as we can be.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Just one quick question, if you wouldn't mind. Can you give just a broad overview? I mean, I've seen several presentations on VCTC, so I hear it there as well. Can you provide just an overall objective as to what this is going to look like when the project is all completed?
That's a great question. This is, we don't see this as an end, right? Like, this is kind of a starting point. And so in terms of what we hope the outcome is for this specific grant, is that we'll have a strategic plan for Ventura County that will be an overview of the entire region, but then also specific chapters for each city talking about their broadband priorities and needs. We're hoping that will be done around May or June. But then from there, that will be a launching point for the cities to be able to go after additional funding that we expect to be coming down from the federal level later this year into next year as well. So this is kind of a starting point, and then we're hoping that this will continue past this initial grant.
And then assuming that we're successful at receiving these additional funds when we get to that point, the ultimate goal then would be to have just a faster broadband service for all residents across the county at some point in time.
Yes, so that's
Okay.
part of kind of the California Broadband for All
Right.
objectives is just, I think it's 98% connected, I believe. So that's the overall goal, is for there to be as much access as possible, and also different providers accessible as well, not just one provider, but to have multiple options.
Right, and then with regard to the improvement that's being done through this whole process, there will not be an additional fee to the end user for this program, this project that's going on.
Yes, correct.
Correct.
There is no additional cost to consumers.
Right, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go on to item number 5B, and I believe this presentation is being presented to us via Zoom. So we have our Finance Director, Deborah Cavaletto, presenting.
Good, okay, great. Good evening, council members, Mayor Brogy. I'm Deborah Cavaletto, Finance Director. Tonight we have a presentation on the state of California's Local Agencies Investment Fund, or LAIF. The city has a special guest tonight via Zoom. Jeff Worm is the Director of the Investment Division for the California State Treasurer's Office. I will be providing a quick overview, and then Jeff will provide additional information regarding LAIF and is available to answer questions the City Council may have. If questions require additional research, Jeff will send the answers to me to distribute. So let's get started. The City of Fillmore currently has active investments in LAIF. LAIF is a voluntary program that began in 1977, which local governments and special districts have access to another investment vehicle that they can participate in. The program is under supervision of the California State Treasurer, Fiona Ma, and her administration. Currently, there are 2,352 participants and $20.8 billion at the end of November 2023. Fees associated with administrating LAIF are charged quarterly to participants. Information to learn more about LAIF program is available on the State Treasurer's website, including such vehicles as annual webinars and various publications. So now I would like to turn over the presentation to Jeff.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to get an opportunity to meet with you and present to you and hopefully answer any questions that you may have. To give you a little more background on myself, I've been in the Treasurer's Office for 22 years, the last 17 in the investment division. I was appointed Director of Investments in December of 21, and the previous 5 years I was Deputy Director of Investments. Prior to my career at the Treasurer's Office, I did work for institutions like Franklin Templeton and E-Trade Securities, and I earned my business degree from California State University, Fresno. I think you have an understanding of LAIF. I can talk on and on about what we do. I love my job. I love representing the treasurer and having the honor to work under 4 of them in my career. So if you know about LAIF well enough that I can just go onto the investment side and save everybody time, I can do that. But if you want a little more overview of LAIF, I can do that also.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like the quick 1 minute.
Sure.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
the elevator speech. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So from a high altitude view, what LAIF is, it's in essence an interest-bearing checking account for the city for your city. So it provides liquidity. It's everyday, day-to-day liquidity. If you contact us prior to 10 a.m., you can take your funds out and you get it that same day. If it's after 10 a.m., between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., you'd get it the next day by close of business. So one of the questions that I was asked to make sure we covered is how are we able to provide that liquidity to know that you could withdraw all the funds out of your account and get your money same day if you contact us by 10. One of the things we do ask is large withdrawals, anything over 10 million, we'd like to get 24 hours notice, if not more, so we can let our cash management division know. But we're not going to tell you no if you call us at 9:45 in the morning or log into the Leif Online app and withdraw all the funds out of your account. I mean, we would just remind you and ask you next time for a large transaction, just give us some notice. The reason that this can happen is the Leif accounts, all the Leif accounts that were mentioned, the 2,300 participants and over $20 billion, now $21 billion, is commingled into one pool with state money. So the total pool itself is in excess of 160 billion as of today's close of business. With that much liquidity and cash flowing in and out of our system every day, we can manage those types of withdrawals and accept those kind of deposits without any kind of problem. So that's the biggest reason. Now that is where it comes on to myself and my team. One of the questions is how many people do we have managing this pool? The entire division is 18 employees, including myself and my assistant director. We have a staff of 5 analysts that manage all the Leif accounts and all the participants' transactions, banking changes, anything that you need to change to your accounts. They have an operations manager and an administrator over Leif, so that's 7 of the staff. The 2 managers, well, the manager and the administrator are both authorized traders with us on the investment side. So we have about 9 authorized traders. We're in the market every day. I think at last check, we are the 2nd largest daily investor of fixed income securities in the United States. So we carry a lot of weight, and that gives us a lot of power in terms of being able to make the right purchases to manage liquidity, both for the state of California and all the local agency investment fund participants. Another question I think that you guys were proposing is what types of securities do we look for? We are under a state legislated guideline, statutes basically, 16430 if you ever wanted to look at it. It is on the state treasurer's website. You can also find my contact information if any of you want to call and ask me questions from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Happy to talk to you. But so the government code limits us to what we can purchase. We can't purchase anything outside of that government code. The biggest portion of the portfolio at this time is United States Treasury securities, all Treasury notes and Treasury bills, roughly 62% of the portfolio. The next 18%, which is the next highest holding, are agency securities, which are your Freddie Macs, Fannie Mae's, Federal Home Loan Bank, Fed Farm Credit, those types of securities. Another item that's guaranteed by the federal government. So the top 80% are guaranteed securities that we're purchasing in this $160 billion portfolio. After that, we are purchasing the highest credit levels for bank certificates of deposits, corporate commercial paper programs. And so, I mean, we are really limited to the highest credit quality and the safest securities that we can purchase. The California's, so the overall pool title is the Pooled Money Investment Account. So that includes the local agency investment fund, which is yourself and other cities and counties that are participating. Then there's the, I really don't like this term, it's called the SMIF account, which is the Surplus Money Investment Fund. It's not surplus money, it's idle money. It's money that's already been raised and earmarked for projects, buildings, whatever is coming up that hasn't been spent yet. So it's idle money, not surplus. And then you have the general fund. That makes up like 99.9% of the portfolio. There's a very small percentage that CalPERS, CalSTRS, and the Department of Fish and Game that leave with us regularly. So those are all the participants in the pool. That's on our website also. It's called the Source of Funds. You can see that quarterly. What other questions did I know ahead of time? I apologize. And the staff. Okay, I think I've covered the questions. What I can tell you how it works, and I really like talking about this. So we work with Department of Finance and the State Controller's Office and the State Treasurer's Office make up the Pooled Money Investment Board. They're the ones that meet every month. They review our investment policy every year. Now, they don't audit it. I mean, they don't edit it. We make edits based on anytime we get a new security. 2 years ago, government code is now allowing us to purchase foreign government bonds. We haven't done that yet. We also have the ability to utilize money market accounts. We haven't been able to do that yet because through the accounting process and working with finance and the State Controller's Office, they haven't signed off and agreed to us doing that yet. But those are the types of things that'll make us change the policy. Terminology in the business world has evolved, and so we've made some edits and nits every year. So the policy gets presented to the board, and they basically approve it without having it being a voting item, that they can make comments and ask things to be changed or reviewed at any time during the year. So there is a committee that oversees it, and it's not just the Treasurer's Office. So I think that covers a very high level view. I'm sure you'll have questions. I'm happy to answer them, or if there's a topic I didn't hit yet, please let me know.
Okay, thank you very much. And sir, I'm sorry, I did not catch your name.
Oh, Jeff. My last name is Worm, W-U-R-M, and I'm the Director of Investments. Yep.
Got it. Thank you. So I'll turn it over to council. Any questions for Mr. Worm?
I have one. What are your typical returns on those kind of funds?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. We do tend to trail what would be the Fed funds rate. Usually it's 6 to 8 months. Our average life of the securities within the portfolio have averaged throughout my career 180 to 210 days. So you're 6 to 7 months. But during COVID and with all the stimulus money the state of California was receiving from the federal government, and also the local agencies had a lot of money they received that they were depositing with us. I mean, the LAIF account balances reached $37 billion by June of 21. And the PMIA itself was $242 billion. That had us kind of lengthen out our investment horizon. We were having to take investments a little bit further to not buy too many of the same securities. Like we didn't feel comfortable owning more than 10% of a treasury issuance. It sounds crazy that we could do that in California, but we can. And so we took a little bit longer time horizon to spread out the risk. And so our average life has got out to over 300 days. It's now back down to 220, so we're back closer to our normal 6 to 7 months behind the market. So just now, we finished the last quarter at around just under 4% in earnings. All that information is also on LAIF. There's historical earnings. They do month-end averages, and then they do a trailing day-to-day average over the last few months, if you wanted to see them.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Mayor, maybe a question for him, but for us, what is our investment right now in LAIF? Do we have a number, an amount, Deborah?
Actually, from September 2023, and we're closing our books for December, it was $26.5 million invested.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think the one other thing I would like to assure you, because I know as a city that you might have concerns about the types of names that we have in the portfolio. Since we do invest on behalf of the state treasurer, believe me, we avoid headline risk as much as we avoid anything that's not the highest credit there is. So there could be the highest credit bank, and if we see them on Bloomberg as we're trading that they are being investigated for something nefarious, we won't purchase them. We'll schedule out when it's going to mature and take it off the portfolio until those storylines go away. So we take more into account than just safety. And now I was trying to get back to that with our investment policy, just so you know, there's 3 priorities in the investment policy. It's safety, liquidity, and then we worry about earnings.
Thank you for that. Anyone else, Chris?
Sorry, you mentioned that the board has or I believe the board has the option to have foreign government investments, but
Yes.
yet there wasn't any currently. I might have missed, but do they have a current policy on how they would prioritize those? Or like what would have to happen for that first step to occur?
Oh, no, that's great. So the country has to have the highest credit rating, or as high as the United States, which an item that we could reference would be S&P has what's called a BICRA rating, and the United States is tier 3. And I don't think anybody is tier 1 anymore. It used to be Australia, I think, was for a while. But there's a few countries in 2 and a few more in 3, and they have to be there or higher. So the credit of the country has to be very, very high. We are also going to avoid any political ramifications. We haven't done it yet. It's not very many issue. The only ones we would consider at this time would be Canadian government bonds, and they only issue one time a year, and that would be in April. So we will look at it, but there's no guarantee that we'll do it. So the government code, when it got added to government code, was very specific. We cannot have more than 1% of the total pool in foreign government bonds.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, Mr. Worm, thank you very much for that presentation. And I thank you too, Deborah, for, for bringing this to us. It's something that I certainly believe that, speaking for myself, I need a lot more education on this. And so I've already requested from our city manager that you and I be able to sit down and give me a hardcore education on this issue and some other questions I have with regard to the budget for the city.
I would be remiss if I didn't get an opportunity to tell you that this year we're offering an in-person conference. It's a long drive for you guys, but it'll be in November 14th. We'll opening registration probably sometime in the fall. If you're interested in sending somebody up, it's a great opportunity.
I think you should take those Giants posters down.
Okay. Here, wait, how about that? I should have known. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could keep us informed on the dates on that via email, send it to our city manager, or that would be great. I mean, I definitely would be interested in participating in something like that. Deborah.
Sorry, Mayor, I just had one other comment to add to that, and that's appreciate the presentation, Deborah. And also, and I think you will do this, but just as we look at our budget, and you'll bring forward proposals maybe from our budget committee of moving things around, adding to LAIF, just to keep us in the loop, and what that would entail and what that means, if we were to invest more. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to item number 6, public comments, and I have 2 speaker requests. They're both from Lynn, and one is on behalf of Marissa Rodriguez. So I'm assuming what that means, Lynn, is that you want to make comments that Marissa's passed on to you?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. Tiffany, she's not here, but...
As the chair, you can decide.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Nice chilly night outside. Last night, I was outside doing Nia fusion at 45 degrees. I was freezing my tail off. So, Marissa called me this afternoon. If you know Marissa, she's around a lot, and she likes to participate in city activities. And she has been for 5 years our representative, even though she hasn't lived in Fillmore 5 years. She was also chosen from her previous time on the Ventura County Transportation Commission Advisory Committee. And today she was moved to be the chair of the committee, which she's excited about. She wanted me to announce that they are having the Ventura County Transportation Commission is having a hearing or an open session at our library this Thursday to find out our needs for transportation. And so I want to invite everyone, and si hay alguien aquí que habla español, yo quiero decir que este jueves en la biblioteca se puede ir allá para presentar sus ideas en cómo podemos mejorar nuestra transportación. Okay? So there we are with that. That was mine from Marissa.
Thank you, Marissa.
You're very welcome.
Thank
Now,
you.
can I be Lynn? I loved my time on City Council, and I know that you, I agree with you and with those in the audience, I wanted to say congregation, in the audience that shared their points of view. We do have a wonderful town. We do well together. We do listen to each other. We live beside each other. That's why we moved to Fillmore. It doesn't have a place that is isolated for Latinos or mostly Latino and mostly white. So I'm proud of us in that capacity. When I was elected for City Council, I got a large number of participants. I walked all through town. I, at that time, could walk all through town. And people that I was shocked shared with me that they agreed that we needed interpretation and transportation, that they agreed that we should do the presentations for Black lives, for historical Latino, for gay and lesbian. They agreed with this, and these were people that I was surprised that because I shared my platform straight out. And they said, yeah, that sounds good. And I got their votes. But when I became my turn to be on City Council, and I had been told, I'm sorry, I get emotional about this, I'd been told over and over that we do a rotating basis, but I was blocked out. I was not allowed to be mayor. And now it happened again. Once again, the person who was supposed to be mayor as Mayor Pro Tem was not chosen as mayor. And I'm not saying anything against you, Gary, because I'm sure you're a great mayor. I'm talking about the process. I was told, many people are told, that it's a rotating system. If it's a rotating system, during your 4 years, you get to be mayor once. But this City Council has not done that. And so you have overridden that multiple times. Another town in our valley did the same thing. And because of that, the people that they represented never got represented. They lived beside each other, but they were not represented. And so that town had a suit against them, and now they're required to do it. So I would suggest that you be more attentive to the needs of everyone that votes, and not just, I value the people that come on a regular basis. They care about our community. They're here because they care. And I value their point of view. But they're the ones that can make it and do make it. And there are many residents that can't at all and don't know how and want to be present. I have 2 friends that attend the Santa Paula City Council meeting because they appreciate how the work is done, how collaborative they work, the City Council members work together, and how important it is for them. And so these people go and they speak Spanish, and they go because they can hear what's happening, what a city should run like. And nobody comes here. We tried it, but very few people came. They don't trust the City Council until you do it over and over and over again, until you reach out and tell people. We used to have in Spanish and English in the water bill. Now it's not there. It's not even in Spanish on how you can petition for changing your bill or whatever, complain. So I'm just saying we need to have a deep decision, a deep conversation on how mayors are chosen. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, moving on to item number 7, which is our City Council reports, recommendations, and comments.
Oh.
I apologize before we do that. Before we move on to that item, I will call Brandy Hollis, who has a public comment as well as speaking on something later on the agenda. So I missed that. Brandy, I apologize.
No problem. Thanks, Carrie. I hope everybody had a great holiday. I just wanted to say I appreciate each and every single person on this board who does come up and serve. It's a lot for everybody, and when I come up here and speak, I just want you guys to always know it's a call to what is right in my own heart. It's never a personal attack. I appreciate every single one of you because it's a lot to ask. Also, is there any way the city of Fillmore could possibly put some sort of thing online that says, hey, the May Festival is not a city-round event, nor was it. Hey, if anybody would like to do it, consider it open for discussion. Just something out there because people just talk about it all the time. And also with the city of Fillmore considering keeping Narcan at City Hall. I ran into an incident. I don't know the exact nature of the incident, but you can't accidentally overdose on Narcan. I think it would be great to have here at City Hall. And, you know, there's a lot of people that may be experiencing that sort of emergency. So if you guys would consider it, I'd be happy to provide it. I know Conejo Health would be happy to provide it. If the city would consider it, I would appreciate it. And then one further thing on public comments. I know it's later on the agenda, but it's a request for consideration for bids for the dog park. And I would just strongly suggest, there's so many people that have asked about trees and grass and the reason they don't enjoy the dog park. And if the
Brandy, I'm sorry, if you're talking about something that's further on the agenda, you'll have to
but
come back
isn't it
up
just a
again.
request for a bid though? That's why.
Yeah, I would rather keep it on the same agenda item, keep all of the comments.
Okay,
together.
if you can add that one.
So
as
that-
well, would be item number.
We have you down for 9C and 9B.
Oh. Yes, perfect. Then I'll readdress that.
Okay.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Okay.
But thank you guys for serving.
Thank you, Brandy.
Bye.
Okay, so now we will move on to, correct me if I'm wrong, to item 7, City Council reports, recommendations, and comments. And this will go to council.
Okay. Mayor, I do have one. Thank you. So now, this is going to be, I think, posted on maybe the website or on the city's social media, but it is an event that is happening. This is by the Fillmore Historical Museum, Shaken, Rattled, and Recovered, Fillmore and the 1994 Earthquake. So it is now a 30-year anniversary in just a few days. On January 17th, 1994, there was the Northridge earthquake, also the Fillmore earthquake. And so Sue Zeider and other folks, wonderful volunteers at the Fillmore Historical Museum, have put together a online Zoom, and it's going to just be a reflection of what took place 30 years ago and how our fire department and police department and city hall and the city staff and a whole bunch of residents, community volunteers, business owners, all came together and really worked through the catastrophe that happened 30 years ago, to residences and to businesses. So this event, again, is on January 18th. It's 7 p.m. If you go to the Fillmore Historical Museum website or their Facebook page, there will be a QR code. There's a QR code here. We're going to get this also in the city, through the city social media and website to register. So just wanted to share that. It should be very interesting. And also wanted to add to that, they had to sort of shift things. Initially, they wanted to have a in-person town hall with a panel at our town theater. Unfortunately, after our last rains, the town theater has got some damage. I think they have leaky roof and other things. So that event will hopefully happen in April and coincide with some other things, but the Zoom event is what's happening next Thursday, January 18th. Okay. Thank you.
Other council? Nothing? Okay, great. On that note, I just want to add too, with regard to the theater, we are going to be looking for ways to move forward on getting assistance for the theater to be, some of the improvements to be made so that they can reopen. I know that Sean, who's worked very hard, who owns the theater, has just put his heart and soul into the theater, and I think there's so much potential for our downtown district with that theater when it is up and running. So there'll be additional information coming down the pike on that. And if you see Sean, give him a thanks for all the hard work he's put in. So, okay, thank you. So moving on now to, where are we at here? The consent calendar. So this is a recommendation for items 8A through D to approve by voice vote. Do I have a motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, then the consent calendar is approved.
Mayor, may I just, this is Erica. There was a clerical typo on the minutes, and I just wanted to mention that
Okay.
for the record, that you're approving the updated minutes with the updated corrections.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Okay, so now we move into our new business, item number 9A. So 9A, the first item is adoption of specifications for project specification number 22-04, which is addresses a city hall elevator, which has been giving us grief for a very, very long time. So I will turn that over to staff. Who's taking this?
So this is Troy.
Sorry, Troy.
Surprise? No.
Yeah. Good evening, council, residents of Fillmore. Obviously, as you just stated, the elevator has been a problem for a long time. We did, in fact, think that we had a contractor who would repair this one in the interim while we were waiting on this modernization, but that did not come to fruition. So we did get some quotes or some information for construction, put specifications together, and what we're looking for is authorization for advertisement for construction bids. Alternatively, we could provide comments on those specifications and direct staff to revise prior to advertisement or not approve altogether.
You want to go ahead and ask?
Go ahead.
Is this a typo on number 2, do not approve the bid advertisement?
Yeah, so
Okay, I just wanted-
if you look at the specification and you do not want to advertise based on those specifications,
Okay,
that would be
that I
option.
understand now, because
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out what we're motioning.
Okay. Any technical questions or questions for staff from council?
I guess one question is, if for whatever reason we don't find a bid that is to our liking, or falls, well within the estimate, what would be the ramifications, if we had continued to do what seems like piecemeal repairs?
No, I think we'd end up having the same trouble with finding a contractor to do the piecemeal repair. And it's not so much piecemeal, it's just that the component that we would need to fix this elevator is not readily available. And our requirement for having having a warranty period from that contractor to warranty that work is really what the sticking point was. If they're doing a full modernization of the elevator, that won't be the issue. But if the prices come back where they're excessively high and not within the budget, then we would have to look at revising the specifications, whittling it down to something that, if we notice in the bids what is kind of driving the higher cost, then we would, look at revising that, taking that out to get the bids back in line with what we would need them to be. So the process might take a couple iterations if it is excessively high, but we do have, the money budgeted from the ARPA funds. We do believe that the estimate should be, within that range, but we won't know until the bids go out, or the advertisement for the bids.
And did the design cost, I think it was 17.6 or so, is that included in the, or deducted from that ARPA funds? So we're looking at roughly 180,000 to limit, but yeah, okay.
And I think the general specifications, we can still tweak them slightly before, if needed, before putting it out to advertisement.
Okay.
Any other questions from council for staff?
No.
Okay, I do not have any public speaker requests on this agenda item, so I will go ahead and ask for a motion.
I do have one last question, sorry. If we do fall within the estimate, there presumably is excess ARPA funds, will there be time to reallocate any of that? Does staff know?
You have to the end of this calendar year to allocate them, so.
Okay.
That was a good question, so. Anyone else? Okay, then I have a motion on this.
I'll make that motion. I recommend that the council adopt the specifications for a modernization of the elevator at City Hall, known as project specification number 22-04, and authorize the advertisement of the project for construction bids.
I second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this item
I'm
passes.
sorry, it said alternatives. I was like looking, going, those are, I was like, you wanted what?
Moving on to item number 9B.
I was confused. I was like.
With regard to our local dog park, adoption of plans, specifications, and cost estimate for, and this has to do with improving the dog park, getting it reopened, and making it ADA sufficient. So we'll turn it over to staff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you know, the dog park was closed in 2021 for non-compliance with American Disability Act. The City Council directed city staff and the Parks Commission to take a look at the dog park and see if we could look at things beyond the ADA requirements and how can we improve it. They included public outreach, and we drew up plans. We did cost estimates. We quickly exceeded $900,000 of improvements that was desired. We presented that to the City Council, and it was quickly discovered we don't have the funds to do that for the dog park. So it was recommended to pursue only ADA items at this time. We can add items later, but for the ADA improvements, we're looking at an approximate cost of $186,000. City staff's requesting $200,000 from the park's development impact fee. However, we're pursuing a reimbursable grant also, so that we don't use, or if we're trying not to use the park development impact fee funds. We're trying to use reimbursable grant funds. We're asking for you to approve the plans. The plans have already been plan checked. They're stamped approved. They comply with ADA requirements. We have the specifications, the bid specifications attached, and the cost estimates. We're asking you to authorize us to start the bid process. We can start the bidding process January the 11th, open the bid on February the 1st, award a contract in mid-February, and start construction in maybe March or May, and close the project sometime in June. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Turn it over to council for questions.
Right, so I do have a couple. Thank you, Kevin. So just so the public knows, these ADA improvements will reopen the dog park.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And bells and whistles can be added on later with maybe perhaps different fundings, but I know there was a mention about trees. I think we have a couple of trees that hopefully cross our fingers, are still alive that can be planted.
They've been donated, yes.
They've been donated. There's the potential for canopy because we're in Fillmore and we need, to have, people are going to be there bringing their dogs there. It's going to be warm, have some shade. So, okay.
You're correct on all those things.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to double check. Thank you.
I have one question about the, I'm not sure exactly what they're called, the waste receptacles, especially for pets that have like bags. I've seen those be emptied very quickly, sometimes all at once. And so I know that it's very easy to just kind of, it's like a tissue box.
Yeah.
Is there potentially any, especially in a concentrated area there, to explore maybe just a different option?
A different method for distributing them?
Yeah, I mean,
we can explore that.
Yeah, just see if there's anything that might be available, especially when people know exactly where that is. I like to think that there was an urgent need for someone at a particular time, but unfortunately some people are just not honest sometimes.
We can look into that.
Okay.
Kevin, sorry, one more question. I know this just gets the ball rolling, but what is our potential end date, opening date, everything done? Is it here?
We're probably maybe June, July.
Of this year?
Yeah,
All right.
2024.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's good to know, yeah. Anyone else?
It's been a long time. Yeah.
It has been a long time, and it's either, I think the dog park has been like a love-hate situation for this community from day one, from the day that we first were looking at where to put it back in the beginning of time.
That's why I was blaming her a couple minutes
I
ago.
know, he does, he's blaming me.
I go, this is your fault.
Yeah. But, and then once we did get it opened, then there was a lot of negative input from the community because there weren't enough things there, in the shade, tables, whatever. So I'm just asking the community to, bear with us as we develop this project. We have a lot of things that are priorities in our community, and as much as we love our pets and especially our dogs, it's still something that will take time to get done. There's things that we have to. I think parks for our kids is a little bit more important than ones for our dogs, but just my opinion. So anyway, just bear with us and we will get as much done as we possibly can. But Kevin, thank you for the presentation. So I will go ahead and, if there's no other comments, questions, then let's go ahead and look for a motion. Oh, I tell you, I'm just, poor Brandy.
No, just an idea I had. I didn't have a chance. My kids have been home. Thank you. They're going back to school tomorrow. I'm so happy. Was if grass and shade and was included in the request for bids, because I know that was a big deal to people. And if the city, I didn't realize there was trees already donated or where they came from, if the city would consider opening that up to like, hey, would a nursery be willing to donate trees with, some sort of plaque memorial, something that says, hey, we donated it, or like a lot of people love to do things for Ari, like, hey, these trees are donated in her memory, or something like that, some sort of anything to, one, keep the public happy, two, take some stress off you guys, three, take financial stress off our city, and just some ideas, to throw out there. And, people are always looking for a good way to get their name out there, especially when they're visiting the dog park. So that was all I kind of had for you
I
guys.
think those trees were donated by the Lions Club.
Oh, I don't know those people.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
I don't know them.
Well, it's before her time, so we'll give her a pass.
Yeah, so, just some ideas I wanted to throw out there. And then I was just curious because, once again, I didn't have a chance to open up that attachment. The ADA compliance that in which ways were we not ADA compliant? Was it getting there, the actual thing, or you have no idea?
It just was not ADA compliant at all.
Period.
We had no concrete, no pathways for wheelchairs.
Right.
The gates weren't wide enough.
That's what I was
don't
assuming.
think the water faucet was, the right height.
Right.
Anyway, so
it's everything.
Right.
Okay, just curious.
Right.
Okay, Perfect, thank you, that's all I
Okay,
have.
thank you.
Just as a follow-up to Brandy's comment, I do think it's pretty great to see that we do have a lot of input for the kind of like a wish list. But I do think that it's most important to get the park reopened and then continue to process the inputs that we have in creative ways if necessary. But and like what we're doing with other park improvements, piecemeal versus all at once. So that way we can continue to build up our infrastructure in smart ways. It would definitely be, I think, little bit of a mission creep for us to make all those improvements when it was closed because of the ADA compliance, and so we ought to correct that and then get it reopened. Make sure people know it's there before we throw a lot of money at it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so now I will ask for a motion.
Okay, I will move that this council adopt the plan specifications and the estimate for improvements to the dog park at Two Rivers Park, known as project specification number 23-05, and authorize the advertisement of the project for construction bids.
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, this item passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 9C. Discuss adopting a facility naming policy, and I will turn this over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This item's coming forward tonight. We've had some discussions in the past year and a half of do we have a policy or on naming a facility for somebody in the community. We have a street naming policy, so we took a look at it, and there's no official policy for naming facilities within our community. So we presented a draft naming policy for City Council to discuss and adopt a facility if you would like to do that. The main highlights of the proposed policy is that City Council has the final authority to name and rename all facilities. City-controlled facilities may be named or renamed after any group, individual, or family, living or deceased, that has made significant and substantial contributions of service, cultural, or historic nature to the City of Fillmore as determined by the City Council. City contributions do not have to be financial in nature. They may include extensive service and/or support to the city organization or the community in general. And the other one on here is no facility shall be named or renamed after an individual until at least 1 year following the death of such individual. This provision may be waived by a majority of 4/5 of the council members. This guideline is appropriate to establish a waiting period to ensure that individuals' accomplishments and contributions will stand the test of time and aren't made on an emotional basis. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. There's no fiscal impact at this point in time. This item meets City Council's goals of community engagement and communication. The alternatives are provide direction to staff, do not adopt a naming facility. Our City Council, if we say we don't want to do a policy, if we want to bring something forward in the future, don't have a policy, we'll say yes or no. That's to your discretion, but we felt it's important to at least give you something to take a look at and start the conversation on.
Okay, any questions from council? Excuse me.
I would like to at least consider whether or not the naming and especially revocation portion of the policy might be considered as a unanimous vote. If something I think is important enough for us to name and stand the test of time, especially in times where there's a lot of polarity in even local politics, that it ought to be a consensus that somebody's name should be on a facility, and then especially when we consider potential removal of somebody's name from a facility, that there ought to be compelling reason to do so. In many ways, we would be making a judgment about that individual's character or actions they took for whatever reason the naming might be happening or a unnaming might be happening. So I think it ought to be with good reason, especially, and if something comes up that somebody wants to name and then it doesn't get named. Well, if the community believes it ought to be named, then they put their vote towards that person. And so I think it's super important. I think especially in times that can be very polarizing, as the world is kind of in I think a sense of turmoil. We ought to be very, very considerate about what this means long term.
So as opposed to supermajority.
Right.
You're suggesting
Unanimous.
unanimous.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a clarification. Is unanimous in the naming or the agreement to name, or unanimous in the provisions?
I would say it would be unanimous in naming, and then there's also a portion in there for revoking. To me, that means like removing a name from a facility.
Thoughts from others on that?
I am fine with that. Anybody else?
I'm okay with it too. I mean, it would raise the bar that this person really deserves, to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think that's good. I think that's good policy that you said, like, we're all on board with that person, to have that respect and knowledge and, know-how in the community.
Yeah, and I think it would, rather than, I mean, the year timeline would still apply as a standing policy, but if there's any contention, then I think the test of time really is in who the community decides would be up here to make that decision.
So I guess what I hear you saying is that if, let's say it's a 4-1 vote in favor of, and what you're suggesting is that if it's something that the community really wants, then the one no vote could be voted out of office. Is that what the implication?
Not in that moment, but
No,
yeah,
obviously
the
not
test
in
of
that
time would be whether or not that
but then
person
you're fast
comes back
forwarding
up.
the process. It could be 3 years down the road.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, so we're talking about the unanimous of the person, but I had a comment on the timeline of the 1 year. I actually, my recommendation, the revision that I would like to make to it is to have a shorter timeline of 6 months. And the reason for that is that there's people, there's a person, and I think since we're all in council that I can mention names. We're talking about an open environment here. Is Ernie Morales, again, a total pillar of our community, longtime mayor, servant, different clubs, active in the Active Adult Center. That when folks pass, I understand the need to sort of stop and reflect and make sure that it is, that person that we want, right? And even if it is by a 5-0 vote, if that's what we decide to do. But also that the more time passes, when someone passes, that's the time when usually when we're reflecting on their life. They have their memorial services, we read their obituary, we're able to sort of review who that person was and everything they did for the community. But the longer we get away from that and the year mark, sort of those things tend to maybe fade away, and maybe the person, or the momentum that was there to say, hey, let's recognize this person, can fade. And not only that, but especially if we're recognizing folks who have passed because they're elderly, they've lived a long life, and their peers, their family members perhaps, but definitely their peers, we may not have that stories about them or that knowledge 1 year down the line. And that's the reality of life, right? So that's my recommendation, that I'd like to give it absolutely full thought of, do we all see this person as someone who's worthy of the naming of a facility, but I think that decision could be made in less time. That's what I'd like to contribute.
As a new mayor, I kind of mishandled this agenda item, and what I wanted to do is have technical questions posed to our city manager on the item itself before we got into full-fledged discussion. I want to bring up, we have one public speaker on this, so let's have her come up and speak, Brandy. And then we'll get back to our dialogue. My apologies.
All right, thanks. So this is the one that kind of, I did take the chance to read, because it kind of like alarmed me. Because you guys keep talking about a person, but it can be an organization as well, right? That made a charitable contribution, did all these things for the community. So even though a particular organization may have done like a lot of great things, it could be really controversial, right? And I'm assuming that a project came up in mind for this to be thrown back on, because that's usually how things happen. I know Dave said there was lots of talk about it back and forth through the years, but usually something comes up where somebody's like, hey, I think this should be done, so we're going to put this back on the table. So I was just curious if there was something in mind. Also, how often are we renaming and naming new facilities that we would need a policy necessarily in place? Maybe, because there is a call to not take an action, not put a policy in place, and maybe revisit it when the need comes up versus having such a set guideline, I think might possibly be better for this community. We're not a large community. We're not building buildings left and right, and hopefully we're not taking down people's names and doing things in haste. And especially for a city that just moved to districts, right? We are still filling things out. We, as a city, might not be happy next time we have city council. We might not value somebody else's opinion or thoughts or anything like that. And as a city, do we really want to put that policy in place? Say, who knows what happens, right? Right now, we're in a new territory, so we don't know where we're going to be in the immediate future. And I'm just wondering if today is the appropriate day to put a policy into place or even have a vote on it, because we might be setting ourselves up for failure as a city, and I'd hate to see something like that happen. I do enjoy your opinion about a unanimous vote, because like the 4-1 seemed a little off to me, especially if you're doing something as drastic as taking somebody's name off, or, never know, the Church of Satan can come and do great financial things for our community and events, and do we really want to put that on our thing? So I think like the whole criteria maybe should be like really more specific. Say, if you were going to put a policy in place, and we all have different opinions and what we consider really a considerable contribution to the city, right? Or was that really a good thing? Or do we really want this to be the representation of our town every time our kids walk by or drive by, or adults, anybody, just something to kind of think about. And I think that, like maybe only like, and okay, this is our city's, mission statement, and we really want to focus. We have the oranges everywhere, that's great. So maybe in the field of agriculture and automotive industry, or something a little bit more specific, so we're not just going left and right and naming things all over the place, or specific groups that maybe are established already in Fillmore, and this person's done a lot for this group or that. I mean, something to kind of narrow it back down versus as broad as it currently is. So those are just some ideas that I had. And I mean, I personally would think that maybe until something maybe is a little bit more like pinned down, put it to a vote, because that is an option to not vote, or not vote, not put it into place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brandy. Okay, back to council. So I'm hearing two issues here so far.
Well, I'm going to throw something out there. It says that under the provisions that no facility shall be named of the, at least 1 year. It says this provision may be waived by a supermajority vote. So it's already kind of in there. If we want to make it less, if we want to make it a 5-5 vote, to shorten the period to 6 months or whatever, we can make the decision on a case-by-case basis. Is that correct, Dave?
Yes, currently right now, if someone were to bring up, someone were to pass away, say January, and they wanted to come back to city council in February, and then 4 out of 5 council members say yes, let's do it, then it would waive the 1-year waiting period.
I'm sorry. Can I see?
Yeah, just
where
read
you're-
it.
The standard would be 1 year.
The standard would be 1 year, and you can wait, we can override the standard.
Oh, I see. You're
The
talking
3
about,
months or
you're
2
talking
months or
about
1
Christina's
minute.
suggestion.
Right.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Chris's. Okay.
So it's already kind of there to me.
Got it. Okay.
I don't believe that 1 year would preclude the nomination for such a naming as well, to then take place at a year mark or whatever date is prescribed, especially with that provision kind of already in there, that the council would have to decide at that point, especially if we decided that a unanimous decision would have to be made. Does that make sense?
To me, I'm not sure. Okay, I understand the 4-1 to, I understand the 4-1 vote that's mentioned here, that if we do not want to wait a year, that's clear to me. But is there another, you're talking about another issue that the vote has to be unanimous for that person? Not just, I mean, there's one to bring it up 4-1, to at least bring the name forward
Right.
less than 1 year. But then, once the name is brought forward, or an organization, that the council would like that to be that you're asking for council to be that to be a unanimous vote.
Correct.
So you could, she was trying to say it's 4/5 to get it moved, and then 550 would put it, would solidify it.
Got it. Okay, I understand now. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on that, or
On the
either?
time period for,
Either. Any input?
I'm okay with the 6 months, if you guys are okay.
Well,
And that's a case-by-case
We can
basis.
go 2 months, we can
Yeah.
do 1 month. I mean, it doesn't space, it's case by case.
I think it's, and I actually can think of an example where there was a sudden death of somebody in the community, and it was recommended by someone who was very active in the community.
Right.
No, to name a park after this person who just recently died. Well, within a month's time, his name was being circulated as a potential naming of a park, and then information came out about more of the backstory. And my point is that it was not, we put the halt on it. We stopped it from being this person, the park being named after this person because of the backstory. But the emotion is what people were picking up on. And I think that's that whole idea, that safeguard of having a 1 year time period before naming is beneficial, because it does have everyone a chance to kind of settle down and let's look at the overall broad picture of this individual or this organization, whatever it is. And do we really want to make that step? But again, like I said, I saw it almost happen in a situation where it would have not have been a good thing. So I think the closer we keep it to a year, the better, but if it's...
So I guess the motion would be then to, I guess, what is this? Is this just reviewing the policy? Oh, it is potentially to adopt it. So a motion would be to adopt this policy that includes the 1 year wait period unless a supermajority of 4-1. And also amend this policy to include a unanimous vote for the facility naming from council. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I was going to ask something. You said you suggest, maybe we should just say, after 6 months, we can do the 4/5 vote. Because that's what you were bringing up, was that's enough period if somebody passes away. 6 months later, there's still going to be, I'm not trying to throw anything in it, but we don't have to go 2 months or we can just do 6 months. That's the earliest you can bring it up. I mean, does anybody agree with that or disagree with that?
That's
And it's
fine.
automatically
yeah.
6 months. We can do it 6 months if we want to, but we want a year.
Okay, understood. So a 6-month wait period to bring up any name. If a name comes up between 6 months and a year, it needs a 4/5 vote to move forward. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're right. So
Am I right? Okay, I'm right. And then a unanimous vote for adoption
Or revocation.
or revocation
Right.
of a name.
A revocation.
Or of naming a facility.
Okay. A little convoluted there, but we got through it.
Yeah.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. This agenda item passes as well. Thank you. On to item DC.
This will
and
be the final
we
time
have
you're here for this, huh?
Troy Spade back to present for us, filing of notices of completion for C Street. Is this going to be your last presentation on C
this,
Street?
right, yeah.
Emergency sewer repair project.
As long as Dave doesn't, something happens between tonight and
Can you turn
tomorrow.
your mic off?
So notice that I was up here before you read this time. Good evening, Ian. So this item is more legal requirement to close out the project. And I probably should have brought this last time when we did the other amendments at that time. But this is just to accept the services of the preliminary phase, which Ferrera did, and accept the completed improvements, which Toro did, and then instruct the city clerk to file the attached notice of completions so that we can meet that obligation. Those documents would be required from FEMA as well for getting reimbursements. So these are kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Thank you, Troy, for all your work on this.
Sure.
I did a little math, which is a scary thing here, but, so the total of the two amounts, the 3 million plus, and then the 4 million plus, came to 7 million plus. So, of that, what is coming out of the city's pockets versus what's being covered?
I don't have that number exactly calculated, and FEMA will, once they look at over all these invoices, they're going to, hopefully they'll accept everything that we submit, but in the event that there's a line item or something that they're like, oh, we don't agree with you paying an extra day or two or whatever for this, they'll take some of that out. But the reimbursement rate for our obligation ends up being 6.25% of whatever they accept.
Great.
Which means that we're getting reimbursed for 93.75%. And would be on the hook for 100% of everything that they don't accept. But we've spent a lot of time working with them already, and we don't see that there's anything really that they would reject unless it's paperwork or a legality issue, but that's not, we're not aware of any of that. What you're also not seeing here is the expenditure with Veolia and the subcontractors with Veolia, which is another significant cost. So, and we also get reimbursed at the same rates for those.
Okay, great. Any other questions from staff? Council?
I would like to, again, thank you, Troy, for all your efforts and your team in handling the situation as lengthy as it has been. I think there's probably a ton that the city has learned this time, a lot that your perspective, being new to your position, has brought to the city in the response. It would potentially be one more thing, but I would like to see if we could potentially just have a lessons learned after action report that you could provide to the staff that we would maybe even be able to publish publicly, so that way people understand like really the monumental effort that it was, and also so that they can see the efforts that the city workers have put and are thinking ahead of, and how we can apply that to other projects and potential emergencies going forward, or regular projects even.
Yeah.
Whatever length you think encompasses it.
No, I find the value in doing something like that. I would hesitate to publish it until after we go through the process with FEMA. I certainly wouldn't want to bring anything up in that would raise a red flag to them for any reason to reject a reimbursement. So
Absolutely, that's part of the process, I think, and I think good or bad, the outcome of FEMA is going to be a huge part of it as well, moving forward. And so that the city understands how we handled it and how we didn't have to take out any loans to process it, and then how we're being financially responsible in getting those reimbursements. I think that'll go a long way with the community. And then just also, hopefully you don't leave ever, but so that your knowledge and experience in this project is kind of passed down through time for the rest of the city. I mean, I witnessed an inspection of a manhole that's probably very new. I can't remember if I mentioned this last meeting. It's probably one of the newer manholes in the city, but it was a Veolia employee, and most people wouldn't even understand who they are or what they're doing. But I imagine that there's a lot of what happened and the importance of inspections in the long term of even the newer stuff. So again, I think capturing that and applying it citywide, this is an excellent time to do that, regardless of the outcome of the FEMA reimbursements.
Agreed.
Anyone else? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve item 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Troy, thank you very much. Okay, we are going to recess now. Council is going to go into, no, we're not yet. Sorry. Item number 10, committee, commission, and board reports.
Not this last month. Not this
Has
month.
anybody even been in one?
I have.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was in a committee because I got chosen to be on for the League of California for the policy committees for housing.
Good for you.
Yeah, so housing. So I'll be reporting more on that later.
Okay.
We just had a orientation on what's involved, and we have our first meeting January 18th or 19th, I believe.
Okay,
in
great.
Burbank.
Good. Anyone else?
I don't have a whole lot of information on it, but with previous meetings with the 2+2 committee with the school district, tonight from 5 to 6 p.m. I wasn't able to make it, but they had a meeting about the interior design of the new gym that's coming out of Measure G that was recently passed. So not exactly sure what all the discussion was. A lot of those meetings have been about gathering small inputs, but mostly just informing the community about what the facility will have. I think it's very impressive what's going on there. So if you want more information about it, the school district has been very good about getting the information out there. Pretty good about receiving inputs. A lot of it is making sure that they keep up with the state. I can't remember the name of the state planning department. They work with the state for their construction. But anyway, it's a great thing that's going on in the community. Your tax dollars being put to work. So hopefully you can see that sooner rather than later.
Great. And then I did have a Ventura County Transportation Commission meeting last week, and we, again, were still celebrating the success on getting the rail cars moved. People were still just excited about the success on getting that done. And that was at 9 a.m. in Camarillo. And at 7:30, I attended another meeting, and I can't remember the name of the committee, because it only meets once a year. But essentially, it's a committee that appoints, I shouldn't even share this. It's a committee that appoints other community leaders to sit on other committees. And it was at 7:30 in the morning in Camarillo. So then I left that meeting and went to the VCTC one. So anyway, so it was a busy couple of days, coupled with holiday stuff going on. But Besides that, I have nothing more. Anyone else? Okay, then we move on to city manager verbal report.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, now we will go into closed session. We will, if there's anything reportable, we're going to closed session on 2 items, and if there's anything reportable, we will report out afterwards. But we will come and conclude the meeting regardless. Thank you. So closed session, we're having a conference with real property negotiators. City Council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 to enable the City Council to consider negotiations and to give direction to its negotiators regarding that certain real property, 575 First Street, Fillmore, with potential purchasers. The city's real property negotiators, the city manager, assistant city manager, and city attorney will seek direction from city council regarding the price and terms for this property. And we'll be back. Thank you. We have just convened in our closed session, and council has been updated, and we have no reportable action. So we're going to adjourn the meeting now until January 23rd at a regular scheduled 6:30 time, and that would be Tuesday. Okay, that's it. Have a good evening. Thank you.